Have you been unleashed?
Unleashed.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Horizon Advisors Unleashed podcast. This is Andrew Henricks back again, your host, here to have some fun today. We're going to be doing something a little bit different. Talk about some fun lifestyle, travel, some fun things to do. That's maybe not necessarily directly financial related, but it does help with a lot of things that we've talked about this podcast. Mindset, the reset, the refresh, and it's just something fun to talk about. We like to share things that we do to help us continue to be the best person that we can be, both professionally and personally. I think it has a lot to do with both. So, Ryan, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, Andrew?
Ryan is here today. Thanks for joining me again, as always. He is fresh off the trip we're going to reference. I think is your second time going, right? Yeah.
I got a little bit of a tan, so.
Yeah, I don't tan that great either, but I still love to be at the beach and in the sun.
The sun.
It's always
good.
It's
glorious.
Yeah, vitamin D is a real thing. I don't think I fully understood that when I was younger, but now as you get older, you really do start to feel it. Even when we get those little brief days here in Michigan in the winter, you get like one day where it pops up to like 55, 60, and it feels like glorious almost. It's definitely a thing. So all the stuff that we're referencing is we actually are talking about Jamaica specifically. We've talked about travel a lot on this. Ryan and I both specifically have talked about travel a lot. I've been to Jamaica once. I actually did join Ryan and his wife. I took my fiance with us last year. They went back again this year. We loved it the first time we went. I'm assuming they loved it again the second time they went. So we wanted to talk about Jamaica in general, share some of our experience of what we did when we were there and why we liked it and why we thought it was a good trip. And also, again, just talking about the experience in general of why trying something new, experiences, maybe going outside your original comfort zone or box, right? How those things can be beneficial to you in your life. So welcome back to the lifestyle series, and here we go. So I guess first we just wanted to share some fun things about Jamaica before we get into our specific experiences and what we did and where we went. Just a little bit about Jamaica, some fun facts. First off, it is a mountainous island, about 600 miles south of Miami, Florida. So not extremely far if you think about it. If you've been to Florida, if you know where Miami is or been to Miami, again, it's not that far away.
Yeah,
right?
One of my favorite parts of it, one of the reasons I like going to Jamaica is it's a non-stop flight. With Delta at least, and it's about 4 hours, so it's not super long, it's not hard to get to, and it's pretty close to the U.S. I think it's 600 miles on a plane. I don't know how long it takes, but you're over the ocean for maybe an hour or so.
Yeah, it can't be that long. Just thinking about it on a plane, right? Definitely in Ryan's situation, he brought his kids with him this time. For other people out there, I guess maybe two front. One, if you do have kids, young kids, and you want to go on a vacation, you want to be able to do it. You want to be able to take the kids. Obviously, maybe something you're considering is how long the flight is, how long the travel time is, what's the pain of once you do get there. Is there more travel? You're thinking of those things, right, to try to minimize potential frustration or stress. So those one stop, right? One flight, no layovers, those sort of things. Those are efficient and beneficial for sure. On the second piece of that, if you don't travel very often, or you're maybe not the most comfortable with flying, you haven't done it a lot, and you're not maybe comfortable with going far, very far, like a long flight. Again, this is another benefit, right, of going to the Caribbean, would be that if you go to the right spot, you can maybe get a one-stop flight. It's not very long, and maybe that can help with, ease some of that worry too. So definitely some good things there. A little bit more about Jamaica. Kingston is the capital, and the population is a little under 3 million people. They are English speaking. They have a beautiful accent. If you've ever listened to maybe reggae music or Bob Marley or anything else, right? They have a very distinct accent. And I would say, from my experience, that the energy and the mindset that they have, the people have there, is very positive, especially given maybe the situation that they are in, right? It's not necessarily the most luxurious or rich, wealthy, right, country out there. But the people still have this beautiful positivity to them.
And traveling, one fear, or obstacle for a lot of people, traveling abroad anywhere outside of the United States is possibly the language barrier, and you don't have that. I mean, every single person on the island speaks English, so that kind of communications. I've been to a lot of places where you have to battle through language barriers, and that makes for it to be a little more difficult and a little more stressful. So I think that's another big point for Jamaica.
Yeah, definitely. Again, for people that are not extremely experienced with travel, the language barrier could be, it's a good point, something that can be intimidating, just because when you're already in a new area, you don't really know where you are, right? You have to rely on technology or people to help you get to where you want to go. If there is that language barrier, that can be difficult. So definitely a plus. I agree.
I'd stay away from Kingston. Kingston's kind of a dangerous area.
More correct. I have not been to Kingston specifically. I don't believe Ryan has either.
No.
Normally if you do go to Jamaica, more of the places you want to go to are Negril, or maybe the top right of Jamaica, Ocho Rios, right, which is the right side. Just more for where the tourism and the hotels and the resorts are, that are just more of a safer destination. Definitely something to consider. Some other fun facts. Tourism makes up about 50% of revenue, which is huge, of course, speaking of the entire economy. And then sugar, rum, and coffee are the biggest exports, which is not surprising. I know rum is big down there, for sure. And then it's just being a nice tropical, Caribbean island. Sugar and coffee, not surprising either.
And the coffee is some of the best in the world.
Yeah, I do remember bringing back, last year when I came back, I did bring back some coffee, 2 bags of coffee, and that went very quickly. It does have a good and unique taste. Lots of sun, normally in the 80s. Again, pretty typical for a Caribbean island, but there are some islands that have more worse weather, a lot more rain. Most of the time it is sunny, just because of where it is, but that's great. And then this is a kind of a shocking one to kind of conclude some of the just basic facts of Jamaica. The average monthly income is around $700 US. So think about that, monthly.
And if you're driving, I mean, I know when Andrew and I went on our trip, we had about a 2.5 hour drive from the airport to our resort. This trip I just got off of, we're a little bit closer. It's about an hour and a half, going from the airport to the resort. And what you'll find, on that car ride, bus ride, whatever you're on, is you're just sitting there passing time, of course, and you drive through all different types of areas. I mean, there's no real main highways. It's all like a 1 lane on each side type of road. Some of the areas are super tight, and what you'll find is you drive through a bunch of just teeny little towns where there's gathering. I don't know if it's one of the statistics in here, a huge percentage of the population lives more in the bigger cities, not in the country. And you'll see all kinds of stuff, the countryside in Jamaica, from my perspective, speaking on that $700 a month, I mean, you would drive through there and you would think, wow, this looks like I wouldn't want to live there. I mean, I saw, houses that were built out of shipping containers, a lot of cinder block, type built homes. It's very, very simple. And I think like anywhere, I mean, anywhere, even in the US, you can live cheap, you can live more expensive. But I think in the country areas of Jamaica, I mean, you can really survive off not a lot, to live. I mean, I think some of the average rents, were under $1,000, a month. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is. Again, and just different country, different perspective. When you start to look at some of these things, you do start to realize how different from a lot of aspects that other countries outside the United States are to us. Yeah, I mean, I remember when we were driving across, because we flew into Montego Bay, right? Yeah, flew into Montego Bay, and you take that car ride that Ryan was mentioning, about 2 hours east to near Ocho Rios, which is ultimately where we were when we went.
One of the big cities.
Which is one of the big cities. There was, one thing I remember is that we passed by the driver that was driving us. We passed by Usain Bolt, who, if you don't know, is a Jamaican native. That's where he's from. He's the, Olympic winning
prolific sprinter.
One of the best, if not the best, sprinter, runner, athlete, really to ever exist. Again, maybe arguably, but very prolific. And I looked over, the driver said, "Hey, that's Usain Bolt's school." And I'm looking over there again, and I see something that you would look at and say, "Did you really go to school there?" Right? Without being disrespectful, it's just looking at it, I said, "Wow, that I'm looking at this school, and it's kind of run down. It's definitely not up to any type of code or anything that we would have here in the United States." And it just, again, it kind of puts perspective in you to say, wow, you look at, someone like Usain Bolt, and this is where he grew up. This is what he was used to. And then he goes and does something, like what he did on a global scale. It's really impressive when you start to see some of these things. But to Ryan's point, continuing on that journey, you pass by a lot of these little towns, these little villages, and you see the houses, and you see the, where you're really driving through. And it just, again, it puts you in a completely different perspective on, where we're from and what we see. And of course, you can find those types of places too in the United States. It's not like it's not around, but it's common, and it's just life down there, and they're used to it. And it's just very interesting to see that with all the positivity and the mindset that they have. It's just a unique type of experience.
Yeah,
I appreciate it all.
Yeah, most of the people I speak to, different people at the hotels, drivers, things like that. Most of them have never even been off the island. So they were born in Jamaica and they've lived there their whole life, and they don't even know what the world is like around them. Which is. But I think to Andrew's point, some people are living at standards that we would consider poverty in the United States, but these are such positive people, and they put their values I think in a lot of different things that maybe we do here in the U.S.
Yeah, I would agree. And again, as long as you have a positive perspective and go to the right spot, I think you could have a lot of fun and have a great experience in Jamaica. So speaking on that, we wanted to share a little bit about our experiences, what we did. We'll kind of start with the one we were both on, because I was there and I can share some, and then we'll go to Ryan's, which was much more recent. But last year, as we mentioned, we went to near Ocho Rios. We were at a resort called Golden Eye, which you'll understand why it's called Golden Eye in a second. But again, we flew into Montego Bay, which again was a one-stop flight from Detroit. to Montego Bay, and then once we landed in Montego Bay, there was a driver from the resort that was there ready to drive us across the island. So if you look at Jamaica on the map, you look at the country, you'll see Montego Bay is, kind of near the left side, northwestish, kind of near the top. And, we were basically going straight east. So along the top end of the country, right on the shoreline, on the coastline, going straight across, really just straight east to the right side, to the northeast side of the country. So the drive was about two and a half, somewhere around there. It was a little, it was a long drive. But again, you got to see some of the things we just mentioned. It was, right on the, the coastline. So you got to see the water the whole way there, and, you got to have the, the breeze and everything coming. It's just, it was still a cool experience, and going through these villages, like we mentioned. Once we got there, it was a, very secluded, very private, kind of, walled off area that from the outside, I will tell you, when we arrived, I was still like, well, where is this place?
Just feels like you're in a jungle.
Yeah, and I just couldn't imagine, from what I was seeing from the road, I just couldn't imagine like where this place was. The pictures that I've seen and stuff that we were looking at, I just couldn't imagine where it was. But we turned into this wall that had a gate, and through the security and whatnot, and then it opened up to this beautiful, landscape of jungle and beach and ocean, and again, it was kind of like just walking through the gate, and then all of a sudden you're like in this beautiful area that from the outside you wouldn't have imagined was behind this wall.
One of the most unique properties I've ever been on.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And and then when you get there and then you see it, and it was beautiful, and the check-in, you can see out through to the ocean, see out to the beach, and it was a very private resort. So again, it's you're in this, I think they called it Paradise Island. I think the locals did, or something like that. But they had about, I don't know, maybe 50 or 60 huts that you could stay in, I think max.
Those were like the beach huts.
The beach huts, yep. And then they had 7 to 10 lagoon, kind of houses that you could rent. And then there was 4 big ones on the beach, I think, somewhere, give or take. Ultimately, not a ton of rooms per se. It's not like this was a massive hotel. That's not what this was. It was, they had beach huts that were, I guess the entire experience is to be more of like you're in kind of, it's more of a nature-like experience. The huts are kind of open. You're supposed to kind of have the windows open, or those sort of things, to have to feel the nature, to feel the water, right? Because you're right there.
All the connecting of the area are all past, walking through their gardens, things like that. You're walking, along the shore. So there is no big tower. There's no, big facility. I mean, it's a restaurant, and then, a few different areas. One of the unique things about the property is the fact that it had a lagoon, which I've never seen. That's kind of, what Andrew was talking about. So when you're walking from the front desk, onto the property, it has this huge, like, bridge, like a rope bridge kind of, that you walk across over the lagoon. And then the lagoon kind of weaves in to the property. And, there's people that stay right on the lagoon, people on the beach, and then they have these houses. So if you wanted to bring your family there, or bring multiple couples, they have houses that you could probably bring 2, 3, 4 couples in. It's just unique, and it is a lot about the nature there. So if you're someone that doesn't like the outdoors, then this might be a little push for you.
Yeah, it would definitely be a unique experience. I when I was there, I remember I related it the most to, at least the closest thing so far. There's probably places that are more like it, but I related it the most to, my experience with, going on the South African safari, where you stay there is Again, you're in the safari, you're in the wild, the nature. So it's very about that. The the resort, for lack of a better word, that you stay at is essentially it's like a tree fort, big massive tree fort, with fence around it, right? That you are in, and so you're in the nature. This was very similar to that. The lagoon that Ryan was mentioning, very unique. Number one, to even have a lagoon that you have access to, but also the fact that the lagoon circles to the ocean and also back into the other kind of beach that was at the resort. You
could swim in the lagoon, kayak. I mean, crystal clear waters right down to the bottom. Mm-hmm. Watch turtles swim by. Again, lagoon is very unique because the salt water and the fresh water are connecting together. So you have these turtles that are very uniquely colored, just because again they don't necessarily look like the ocean, the big turtles in the ocean, because they're like a mix of like a saltwater and a freshwater turtle. They're swimming by. We saw little stingrays, I believe, right, and a few fish and other things. And you could go and jump in, swim. You could kayak. You could do, and it all connected to the beach. And then on top of that, which the lagoon was awesome. It was loud at night. It was loud. I mean, it's a jungle.
Yeah, you're in the nature, right? You're going to hear a lot of things. But the other unique thing about it was there's obviously a couple more unique things, but the biggest one for me, was the coral reef that was right off of the resort. And when I say right off the resort, it's basically in the resort. You can walk into the ocean. It's like a little cove, and I think they call it Snorkeler's Cove or something. And you could literally, from your beach chair that you're sitting on, you can go into the ocean in this little cove, and then you swim out the cove, and you're in a multiple mile long coral reef that is, kind of fenced off, or it has nets and stuff out there that you can stay in. They have people watching, but it was a beautiful coral reef that you could swim. I mean, we swam for hours and hours just looking at all the corals. There was all the fish. We saw some very unique species that I've never gotten to see live yet, and I love to snorkel and do those things, and I've seen a lot. But like an electric eel, I mean, that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Saw a massive crab, like a king crab, big porcupine, puffer fish, squid.
All kinds of stuff.
All kind of unique things while you're swimming. I mean, that was the most unique thing about this place.
Yeah, there was not a lot of activities there. So if you're a person that likes to travel and stay busy all day, unless you like snorkeling, that's one of the things Andrew and I did all day. There was literally, you could do a little bit of kayaking, a few things like that, but there's no boats coming in there. It's super private, and it's really about, sitting there and enjoying the nature and just kind of getting your mind working.
Yep.
In a good way. So for people that, need a lot of things, I don't even think there was cable television. There was not a lot of options, if those are things that you like.
I think there was one spot that had a TV that they were playing, soccer,
maybe in the bar or something.
Yeah, soccer or something on. But yeah, so, again, very, this is more geared towards the going out and being, by yourself, not busy trying to reset and refresh type of place. This is not like commercial. No, there's no buildings. There's no like people coming in and out, all these activities to do. It's not that. It's more of, you doing your thing and relaxing.
And not having a million people around you.
Yes, correct. I guess the last piece of it before we switch gears back to Ryan's more recent trip, I go back to, it was called the Golden Eye. So why was it called the Golden Eye? Well, if you're familiar with, maybe some of you are familiar with the very popular James Bond GoldenEye video game that is like a cult, has like a cult following from back in the day. But that's what it is. It's James Bond, right? So Ian Fleming, who was the author who wrote the James Bond, books, thrillers, he wrote them in Jamaica. And he was actually, at this resort, he,
Pre-resort, pre
pre-
having it there.
he had one of those, little mansions, right near the lagoon and on the beach, and that's what inspired him to write these novels. If you look at the movies, I think it even kind of, the Bourne movies even kind of took a little bit from that. If you look at some of these, kind of assassin type of movies, right? These thrillers. There's always a part where the main character, like Bond, goes and is like in a secluded, almost like a third world kind of country type of little hut or a little very secluded place that he's like hiding out, right? That was kind of where that idea came from that inspired him was this area.
Some of it was actually shot at the property too, the original.
So like that lagoon look, that hut look, right? When he's hiding, that was inspired, and he wrote them there. And they have special rum at the resort that is like that's branded like James Bond 007.
The Appleton rum.
Appleton rum is very famous in Jamaica. I believe it's one of the most expensive, one of the most well-known, renowned rums there is the Appleton one. But they have 007, so they have some unique things, but it's not like commercialized. It's not in your face. You would never, if you didn't see or was told or knew about James Bond or anything like that, besides the little entryway that you go when you check in, and they have a couple little like books of Ian Fleming and the 007 rum, if you didn't recognize those things, you would never know about James Bond or anything like that. It's not like marketing, it's not what the purpose is. So it's not in your face like that, but they do have that unique approach. And the last piece of it is there's this awesome swimming pool that is, again, because you're on a beach, right? So they have there's this huge cove that, like with the snorkelers cove, of huge rocks, right? Mountainous type of rocks that lead into the ocean that are elevated. And they have a swimming pool that's a complete circle that if you look at it from above and down, the tiles of the swimming pool are an eye, a golden eye, to be exact. So if you looked at the pictures and saw the pool at Golden Eye in Jamaica, you'll see that, it's a circle from up above, and and the tiles make the shape of a picture of an eye that's golden. And this pool it's almost like an infinity pool almost, but it's elevated very high up and out into the ocean over all these rocks. So you're almost like in a pool where you're out in the ocean. You're not, it's pretty kind of far off the resort, but you walk to it, and then there's just this infinity pool that is like you're in the ocean. You can hear the waves, the big waves from the ocean, because you're pretty far out, right? Hitting the rocks, and you're just in this pool, like kind of out in the middle of the ocean, and it's just a very unique, when the clear skies, the stars are up above, and it was a very unique experience.
One of the other last points that was hugely different between my trip I just was on and GoldenEye to, I think at GoldenEye it's all farm to table food. So if you want a true, authentic Jamaican type of food, that's what it's all about. I mean, you couldn't get chicken nuggets or French fries or pizza or anything like that. I mean, you're eating off of a menu that's all authentic foods.
Yeah, it was very unique in that regard. A lot of Jamaican jerk, right? A lot of those things. So it was. I love that food, right? I know they had a personal kind of chef, and there was I think there was an Indian night with more curry based food. But mostly jerk, right? That spice, which I love, and again, it was amazing, and they're very well known for their food. So I guess to segue over to now the one that I wasn't a part of. So now Ryan can share of his more recent experience of traveling to Jamaica, which you just got back from.
Mm-hmm.
I did take the family and the kids, so again, a little bit different and a different perspective. So, why don't you, I guess, start sharing a little bit about why that was different and what happened there?
Yeah, so
Here, stop one sec. I heard the camera turn off. Did you hear that too?
That's fine.
Okay.
In in this area, I went to Negril. I think the island, don't quote me, but I think it has 2 beaches and 2 sandals resorts. So now we're talking more of a resort style, more kind of hotels that, maybe will be optimal for more people. We went and did the beaches in Negril. It was good. It's a family spot. They got pools, they got water slides, they got tons of kids activities. You got kind of Sesame Street characters walking around. So it's all oriented to kids, whereas if you went to a Sandals, that's kind of a couples resort. You're not going to get any kids. So if you're a grandparent or a family that has kids, I saw a lot of big families there where they had the grandparents, the parents, the grandkids, where they collectively went there. There's definitely something for everybody there. Saw a lot of that. In this type of hotel, you have a lot of the bigger type buildings. So you're in a building, with a lot of other people. You can kind of hear noise from other rooms if you're in that position. And then they also, on both sides of the hotel, on the far right, far left side, they have some of the bigger, more expensive rooms that you can rent. That's not where I stayed, but if you went with a big family or a bunch of couples, you could kind of load up and maybe even get a better value, better service by kind of going all together. But this is the type of resort, where you are getting a lot of French fries. They had all these different stations. They had a salad truck, a chicken truck, a little bakery where you could get crepes or desserts and things like that at any time of the day. So my daughter Charlie, she was going to this crepe place, once, twice a day, grabbing a crepe, grabbing some donuts, whatever. So a lot more junk food associated with it, and just a super busy. When you go to the pools, you're having, a harder time finding, good spots on the beach. It's a huge beach, but, a lot of the prime spots are kind of gobbled up early in the morning. People kind of get down there and choose their spot. So if you don't like that type of, place where maybe you have to get a little earlier to get the good spots, in GoldenEye, you could do whatever you want. There's always good spots available. Here, is more that type of thing. But, they threw on some, different buffets. They had a beach night where they did buffets, a lot of different buffets with a lot of different options on food. They did have some authentic food, but I felt like it was more catering to, what Americans like.
Definitely.
They had a whole pizza place that, was always busy, just serving pizzas all the time. So I thought, it was a little overpriced personally. It's all inclusive, so you just pay a price. There's no tipping. You don't have to buy your drinks, buy your food. It's just kind of whatever you want. You can just kind of get room service on all that. So, overall, still a great time. Would I go back to beaches? Probably not. Personally, after I've done it once. If I was going with a group and more kids and stuff like that, especially if you had a little bit of older kids, that are maybe like teenagers, I saw a lot of parents kind of doing what they want while their teenagers are running around on the property. So if you like that, then, there's a pretty good opportunity to kind of, have a little bit for everybody, on the resort.
Yeah. When we were younger, we didn't go to the one in the grill that Ryan's talking about, but we went to the beaches in Turks and Caicos, which is also a Caribbean island.
It's a much bigger resort.
The one in Turks?
Yeah.
Or the one, okay. Which we'll probably be talking about Turks sometime on this podcast too, because we've both been there several times. And that's another one we do love to go to. Shout out to our friend Drake too. But I remember that again. That was more just from my experience. I loved it when I went. I was young, fourth or fifth grade. That was really like the first trip that we got to go on from a vacation standpoint. That was when my parents were going on their trips. That was really the first time we got to go. To Ryan's was my kind of more catered towards the kids. I remember running around the resort, kind of doing my own thing. There was plenty of stuff to do, for someone that was at that age. Like, I remember they had they had like a little kids kind of restaurant that you could go in and get whatever you wanted. They had a video
games,
game
pool
area,
tables, ping pong,
that kind of stuff. While the parents, got to relax and sit by the pool or go to the beach and things like that. So again, it's just a completely different experience, right? Of course, if you have kids and you're planning to bring kids, depending on the ages, of course, but if they're where Ryan's kids' ages are at, obviously that's going to limit you onto something. Just talking about the trips in general, right? GoldenEye probably doesn't make sense in that regard unless the kids are older. They will appreciate it more, more of the.
They probably get bored.
Correct. So, I mean, that's what I remember. From I had a great time. I remember. I know that my parents enjoyed it. We actually did go back there one other time later. I know my parents liked it for that reason, is that they really could relax because the kids would run around and do the stuff, rather as having to be watching them and be always on them. So that'd be my one take on it. Obviously, I didn't go to the one in Jamaica, but
it's pretty similar.
But probably pretty similar. I mean, again, they have multiple of them, right? It's
there's
more
something for everybody,
which is a plus. And I would just say that if you go that route, staying busy is probably more of a better action, unless the kids can maintain themselves and go do their own thing. Then maybe you can relax and do your own thing. But if not, then you're probably staying pretty busy and you want to have activities, which they do have there, right? You can rent jet ski. I don't know about
endless things.
Yeah, I don't know about the Jamaica one, but you could like rent jet skis. You could go kind of surfing and that kind of stuff. You can go snorkeling. You can do paragliding. There's a lot of stuff, right, that you can do. They have those vendors and those people there, which is, again, much different. But you have those options.
Yeah, people selling you on the beach on these different things. So it's just what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. And I would probably say a lot busier. I mean, how busy was it when you were there?
I mean, it was so busy.
Was it?
I mean, it was crazy busy.
I do remember, again, and that's pretty common for a lot of hotels and resorts that are busier. The people, you got to go down at like 6 a.m. to get your chair.
Oh, that drives me nuts.
It's what people do. I know my dad always was the one to do it. But also because I never liked to sit at the chairs. Like, that was not my thing. I still really don't do it to this day because I like to go out in the water and swim and snorkel and those things. So I didn't really care about my seat as long as there was a spot to put my stuff, or sometimes I would just leave it in the room. But my parents liked to sit and tan and do those things, so that mattered to them. So they got up and did it, but I never really cared for that, so it didn't bother me. But I know that that's a big thing for people that like to have their little, home base, right, at the pool or at the beach. You got to get up and get your chair. I mean, that's something you got to do. So
my final thing on Jamaica, besides it being a nonstop flight, and I really do like the people. I think they're great people. Is the weather I've never been disappointed with the weather there. I mean, it's just, if you love blue skies, mid 80s, a nice sun, I mean, you're going to get it very consistently there.
Yeah, my closing point would be that I'll definitely be going back at some point. I might even be going back to GoldenEye at some point. I did like it that much, I will say. So if that's something that resonated with you from how we described it, that's something that sounds interesting, I would definitely check it out. And again, maybe more of the family-oriented things. There's a lot of beaches, resorts around there, but it could be a good fit too. But Jamaica's a great spot, and if you've never considered it, or for some reason had a negative outlook, or some of those other things, Ryan and I've been to a lot of places. We've traveled a lot, something we like to do, and it's definitely high up on the list. So yeah, we liked it. We appreciate it. Something to consider. So thanks for listening. And yeah, man, talk to you soon. Disclosure. Ryan Cuss, President, Financial Planner. Alexander Dinzer, Managing Director, Financial Planner. Andrew Henricks, Financial Planner. Securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisor Networks, LLC, member FINRA SIPC, a broker-dealer and registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Tax planning services offered by Horizon Advisors. Tax and accounting services provided by Horizon Advisors CPA. Cetera Advisor Networks nor any of its representatives do not provide tax nor accounting services. The views stated in this podcast are not necessarily the opinion of Cetera Advisor Networks LLC and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities. Due to volatility within the markets, opinions are subject to change without notice. Information is based on sources believed to be reliable. However, their accuracy or completeness cannot be guaranteed. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Investors cannot invest directly in indexes. The performance of any index is not indicative of the performance of any investment and does not take into account the effects of inflation and the fees and expenses associated with investing. A diversified portfolio does not assure a profit or protect against loss in a declining market. All investing involves risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will be successful. Distributions from traditional IRAs and employer-sponsored retirement plans are taxed as ordinary income and, if taken prior to reaching age 59.5, may be subject to an additional 10% IRS tax penalty. Converting from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. A Roth IRA offers a tax-free withdrawals on taxable contributions. To qualify for the tax-free and penalty-free withdrawal of earnings, a Roth IRA must be in place for at least 5 tax years, and the distribution must take place after age 59.5 or due to death, disability, or a first-time home purchase up to a $10,000 lifetime maximum. Depending on state law, Roth IRA distributions may be subject to state taxes. There is a surrender charge imposed generally during the first 5 to 7 years that you own the contract in an annuity. Withdrawals prior to age 59.5 may result in a 10% IRS tax penalty in addition to any ordinary income tax. The guarantee of the annuity is backed by the financial strength of the underlying insurance company. Investment sub-account values will fluctuate with changes in market conditions. An investment in a variable annuity involves investment risk, including possible loss of principal. Variable annuities are designed for long-term investing. The contract, when redeemed, may be worth more or less than the total amount you invested. Variable annuities are subject to insurance-related charges, including mortality and expense charges, administrative fees, and the expenses associated with the underlying sub-accounts. Investing in mutual funds is subject to risk and loss of principal. There is no assurance or certainty that any investment strategy will be successful in meeting its objectives. Variable annuities, exchange-traded funds, and mutual funds are sold by prospectus only. Investors should consider the investment objectives, risks, and charges and expenses of the variable annuity, mutual fund, or ETF carefully before investing. The prospectus contains this and other information about the product. Contact Alexander Dinzer at 5455 Corporate Drive, Suite 210, Troy, Michigan, 48098 or 248-265-6662 to obtain a prospectus, which should be read carefully before investing or sending money. Again, Horizon Advisors, 5455 Corporate Drive, Suite 210, Michigan, 48098.